Welcome to the Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address the commission on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the commission. Please hand in your completed card to a city staff member. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The commission secretary will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meetings stream live on YouTube and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
Good evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 26, 2024 is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the secretary note the roll call?
Commissioner Smith is present, Commissioner Booth is present, Commissioner Wang is present, Commissioner Nepomuceno is present, Vice Chair Sambito is present, Chairman Clymer and Commissioner Hegedus are both present and on the phone. We have a quorum.
Item 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the last meeting. Will the secretary please read the recommendation?
Approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on June 12, 2024. Is there a motion and a second for the staff recommendation? I have a motion from Commissioner Booth and a second from Commissioner Wang. Please enter your vote. And on the phone, if I can get a vote from Chairman Clymer.
Aye.
And Commissioner Hegedus?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any non-agenda item. Are there any speaker cards?
Not for non-agenda item.
Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on a non-agenda item? Very good. This is an opportunity for the commission members to disclose any ex parte communications that they may have had prior to this meeting on any items scheduled for discussion on this agenda. Ex parte communication is an outside communication commissioners may have had regarding items on tonight's agenda. No? Okay.
No. No.
There are 2 public hearings on the agenda tonight. As a reminder, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommendation board for council. The commission will vote on each item and forward their recommendation to council. Council makes the final decision on all items. Agenda item number 2 is the use permit for QT. Senior Planner Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez will present. Now we can hear
I
you.
think we have audio now.
There we go. We'll start over.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Chair Commissioners. Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez, Senior Planner. Before you tonight is a use permit for a convenience use, a Quick Trip convenience store with a gas station. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of North 166th Avenue and West Indian School Road. The property has a business and commerce land use designation in the General Plan 2035 and has had a commercial or industrial designation since the 1998 General Plan. The property is zoned PAD, Planned Area Development, and has an underlying C2 general commercial zoning. The property is part of the PB 303 PAD, which was originally zoned in 2008. The property is also within Luke Air Force Base 65 DNL zone, which starts from this line going west. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard a use permit for a convenience store and gas station at the proposed location back in April of 2023. The use permit for that application was withdrawn before the City Council hearing. The proposed Quick Trip site is approximately 1.8 acres. The project is proposed to go in a commercial center called the Triangle at PB 303. A master site plan for the center was approved by staff in February 2023, and it's shown in on the screen by the red outline. The triangle is northwest of the Pebble Creek Community's pickleball, recreation, and RV storage areas. The center includes a Filiberto's drive-through restaurant and a few other vacant pads. The use permit for the Filiberto's was approved by City Council in April of 2021. This slide shows the proposed site plan for the Quick Trip. The applicant proposes a 5,000 square foot convenience store and a 7,000 square foot fuel canopy with 8 fueling pumps, which could serve up to 16 vehicles at a time. Customers would have access to the property from a drive on West Indian School Road with right-in, right-out access only, and full access from North 166th Avenue at this location. The proposed building elevations include colors and materials consistent with the colors and materials palette approved with the master site plan. The proposed fueling canopies are also in compliance with the approved master site plan palette and match the design proposed for the building elevations. The citizen review and public hearing processes were followed. Notices were mailed to surrounding property owners, signs were posted on the property, and a legal advertisement was published in the newspaper. In addition to the required citizen review meeting, the applicant held an additional meeting for Pebble Creek residents. On May 22nd, the applicant held the first meeting at the Pebble Creek Tuscany Falls Ballroom, where approximately 100 residents attended the meeting. Then on May 29th, the citizen review meeting took place, and approximately 26 residents were in attendance. Residents at the meetings expressed concerns with lighting, noise, traffic, increased crime. They also expressed environmental and health concerns, as well as concerns with hours of operation and expansion for truck stop or diesel fueling services or other services for semi-trucks. Residents objected to the proposed 24-hour, 7 days a week hours of operation and requested a stone wall be built south of the subject property. At these meetings, the applicant indicated that, At these meetings, the applicant indicated that they do not plan on expanding the proposed use, and they explained their 24/7 hours of operation and business model. To address resident concerns, the applicant conducted a noise study. The noise study concluded that the proposed Quick Trip will not generate additional noise for nearby residents. The study indicated that the potential noise level at the closest residential property would be 45 decibels or lower. An additional study was also conducted for the potential noise generated from delivery trucks and considered the potential sound wall being built on the south side of the subject property. This study also concluded the noise would be lower than 45 decibels at the closest residence, and that a sound wall south of the property would redirect noise west and east of the property, increasing the noise for residents on the east side of the property. Staff believes that the Quick Trip is compatible with the uses permitted and previously approved projects in the surrounding area. As stated previously, the property is designated for business and commerce land uses and is zoned C2. It's zoned for C2 commercial uses. And the property is located within a commercial center that will include similar uses in the surrounding area. Some of the permitted uses by right in the C2 general commercial are listed on this slide and include automobile repair shops, banks, bus terminals, funeral homes, retail, massage establishments, parking lots, and pawn shops. These uses do not have limitations on their hours of operation, and some may be more intensive in their use. The traffic study submitted with the application found that the roadwork level of service would be adequate for the area with the proposed use. Lighting for the site would be reviewed with any building permits in the future, and the site would need to meet the lighting zone 2 standards, which address light spill. The property is located approximately 700 feet from the nearest residential to the southeast, and the property is located approximately 240 feet from the pickleball courts and recreation area in Pebble Creek, as shown in this slide. In blue on this slide is also the site of the approved use permit for Filiberto's. Given the proposed location near the Loop 303 and within a commercial center with approved use permit for a drive-through restaurant with the same hours of operation, staff does not recommend restrictions on hours of operation. The use permit application meets the use permit and convenience use evaluation criteria established in the zoning ordinance and detailed in the staff report. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forwards a recommendation of approval to the City Council, subject to the stipulations found in the staff report, which include a prohibition of truck stop or travel center facilities and services, as well as a prohibition on on-site semi-truck parking and overnight parking accommodations. Vice Chair, Commission members, this concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions, and the applicant is also in attendance. I believe they also have a presentation.
Thank you, Guadalupe. Are there any questions?
Yes. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Do you know the approximate fee of the Quick Trip on Van Buren and Estrella Parkway to residences behind there?
Maybe you're in the Strip Parkway. Is it so I do have an additional slide
I'm
here.
sorry.
Is it the Quick Trip on Estrella Parkway south of West Fillmore Street?
Yes.
Yes. that's
Yes.
the one.
Okay, that Quick Trip is adjacent to the Christopher Todd communities here on the east, and about approximately 75 feet from the Acero Estrella Commons property to the north. And that's measured from property line to property line.
It's about 75 feet? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
This proposal is calls for 24/7 operation, right? So tell me, is there any similar business in the immediate vicinity that operates 24/7?
Thank you, Commissioner Neposino, Vice Chair, Commissioners. The City Council approved a use permit for Filiberto's that's immediately east of the site. Actually, I think I have a better aerial here. And that use permit proposed 24 hours of operation, and no limitations were placed on that use permit. And I believe that the UPS immediately north operates 24/7.
Is that permit still valid up to this point? Because it's more than 3 years.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Nepomuceno, Vice Chair, Commissioners. The Filiberto's use permit is active. The applicant has requested the necessary extensions in order to remain or keep that use permit in active as they work on their building permits and I believe other obtaining water at the site as well.
The other question I have is, I noticed in the front of that property, there is a storm detention basin, apparently. So what's going to happen to that?
During the site plan and construction documents phase of the project, if it moved forward, the civil plan review team would review the drainage plans for the property. I do not know off the top of my head what the plans are, but they would be reviewed and drainage would be in compliance with our engineering standards.
Thank you.
So, anybody else? Guadalupe, I noticed the previous application extended all the way down where the truck fueling was. Are there any plans at this point for the other half of Lot 1?
Thank you, Vice Chair, Commissioners. At the moment, staff is not aware. There hasn't been a submission made for the property immediately south of the proposed QT.
In that regard, as part of the package we received, it did reflect an approved master plan for the site, which does still reflect the fueling stations and parking. It feels kind of in conflict since it's approved, and yet we're giving stipulations here that they can't have that. How do we rectify that?
Thank you, Vice Chair, Commissioners. The master site plan was previously in concurrent review with the other application. The master site plan does not, in this case, permit the applicants to move forward to construction documents. They will need to submit a site plan for the individual paths before moving forward for civil or building construction phase.
Okay, but it still gives me the impression that that remains a possibility. Is that not the case? Maybe not, if they were to divide this site, maybe not with this applicant, but another applicant, since it's an approved master plan, would that remain a possibility? Sorry.
That is a good question. That's a great question.
Sorry, Christian.
No, it's okay. It's a great question. The master site plan was more of an exercise when those applicants were in on how that whole site would come together. That applicant never received a special use permit or a use permit for that use, so effectively that site would not be allowed to develop as that use. If an applicant in the future were to proceed with a use of that type, it would need to go back through the whole process.
So even though it was called an approved master plan in the report, the project itself was not approved?
Correct.
Okay.
That
So
required
that
public hearing.
nullifies the master plan as it was presented?
That nullifies those components because they had
Okay.
an additional step, which would have been the use permit.
Okay.
What really the master plan nullified was access points that would benefit the entire center, color palette, themes, and materials.
Okay, all right, thank you, Christian. Those are all of my questions. Does the applicant wish to address the commission?
Thank you, Vice Chairperson and members of the commission. For your record, my name is Brian Greathouse with the law firm Birch and Cracchiolo. We have a whole team here that's been working on this site with us. First from QT is Daniel Chambers. We have Lokahi, who's our traffic engineer. Jamie Blakeman's here representing Lokahi. We have Robert Hannon from Kimley Horn, who's our civil engineer working with us. And we have Krista Bilstein, who's been doing some neighborhood outreach for us. We have my partner, Ed Bull, and one of our associates, Madison Leak. I want to thank Guadalupe for a great presentation. We really appreciate it. We agree with all of staff's findings and analysis with respect to this development meeting the use permit criteria and meeting the additional evaluation criteria for convenience uses. We agree and accept with all stipulations 1 through 7, and we request your recommendation of approval to City Council. I have a brief presentation that I'd like to go through. If we could get that brought up. Thank you. Quick Trip needs no introduction. Everybody here, I'm sure in the whole room's been to a Quick Trip. They're best in class, they're high quality, the service is top notch, and we think it makes a lot of sense on this site to develop a Quick Trip. The site, as it was explained, is proximate to the Loop 303 freeway. It's just a little bit east of the freeway. It's at a signalized intersection that provides great access to and from the site. The site is surrounded by all vacant land today. As was shown in the presentation, all of that vacant land is zoned C2 for commercial uses, similar to what a QT would provide. As was presented, this site is about 700 feet from the nearest home. The fuel pumps are more than 850 feet from the nearest home. That's, for context, about 3 football fields. That's a significant distance. The fuel pumps are also located approximately 450 feet from the pickleball courts where folks recreate. Also between the homes is an existing storage facility, outdoor storage for RVs. There's 3 walls between the site and the nearest home, and there will be future commercial development that will also buffer the site from the nearest homes. As was explained, we might be missing a slide, that's okay. Earlier, you heard about a 65 LDN contour. That relates to a noise contour that surrounds the Luke Air Force Base. Those noise contours by state statute regulate what can and can't be developed around the base. As you can see on here where the yellow line is the 65 LDN contour, single-family homes are located southeast of the line on the right-hand side of the slide. On the left-hand side of the yellow line, we have recreational uses, an RV storage facility, and commercial. As you know, the general plan for the city has business and commerce designations on this site. Part of that is because of this state statute regulating what can and can't be developed within different sides of the 65 LDN. In this instance, we're on the noisy side of the 65 LDN. This was the master site plan that was approved and just discussed a minute ago. As Daniel Chambers described in the neighborhood meeting when we were asked would QT ever expand the facility into the location where Circle K had proposed a semi-truck fueling operation, he told everyone there QT had no plans to do that. QT is not proposing anything like that in this development. The development that we're proposing is just within this 1.86 acre site. As you heard, the site's designated for C2 uses that allows a whole lot of commercial uses that would be unregulated for hours. Any of those businesses could be 24/7 if they're permitted on the site. And it's been designated, either it was designated commercial, I believe, first, then it was designated industrial, and then the latest update, the 2035 general plan, it's now designated business and commerce. So this site was always intended to and envisioned on having a development that's commercial or industrial in nature, and we think QT makes a lot of good land use sense on this property. All commercial uses that I'm aware of have deliveries. So when we're talking about delivery trucks and intensity, all of them generate traffic. They all have deliveries, and they all operate. And there's a whole host of developments that could be developed in this C2. We're requesting a use permit for a convenience use for this QT store. I have 2 slides here I want to show you just to give you a rendering and a picture of what this development would look like. This is looking southeast. The fuel pumps are located along Indian School Road, farthest away from anywhere on the site we could get from the nearest single-family homes that are 3 football fields away. We have 2 access points. One is on Indian School Road, and the other one is on 166th Avenue. We have pretty expansive landscape buffers around the site. And let me go to this one. This is a view from Indian School Road looking at the driveway on Indian School Road. We're working with staff to finalize architectural compatibility with what was approved in the master site plan. That's ongoing, but it will be a nice quality QT store, much like you see at Bullard and McDowell today if you visited that store. There's a lot of thoughtful planning that's gone into this development. We have landscape buffers around the entire site. We're not abutting the RV storage. We have vacant land around us that will be developed commercial in the future. The fuel pumps are located 3 football fields away from the nearest single-family home, and we think this is a sensible, high-quality development that's proximate to the Loop 303 freeway, where developments like these often go. Some common concerns that have been expressed both in our neighborhood meetings, because we've held 2. We held one at Pebble Creek in the community, and we held another official neighborhood meeting over here in City Hall. And we also read the meeting summary minutes from the old Circle K case. And that Circle K case, we understand this commission recommended approval to the city council before it was withdrawn by that applicant. So just to be clear, we are not proposing any type of truck services, no semi-truck fueling, no showers, nothing that would attract semi-trucks. We heard traffic concerns, we've heard proximity to residential concerns, we've heard noise, lighting, safety, and environmental concerns, and I'll try to address those here. With respect to traffic, about 75% of trips that come in and out of a QT are already on the road. So when we're looking at how many trips are going to be new generated on Indian School Road, we anticipate about 1,362 new trips on Indian School Road on a weekday. To give you an idea of what that means is the existing traffic counts on Indian School Road are 23,900 vehicles per day. That's about 44% of the total capacity of that type of roadway. QT would add about 2% to that, still leaving a lot of capacity for Indian School Road to operate.
Would you kindly go
Well-
back to the previous slide?
So the green box on the bottom represents how many new trips would be generated by this proposed Quick Trip.
So this is morning and afternoon. How about during the night?
The peak hours are when most of the traffic
I
is
understand
generated.
that. But you have no idea how many vehicles would come during the night.
Oh, yeah, the 1,362 trips is over a 24-hour period.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Thank you.
So I hope we've shown that there's a lot of available capacity in Indian School Road. If you compare that to other C2 uses that could be developed on the property, such as fast food without drive-through or a coffee donut shop with drive-through, there's a significant significantly less amount of new trips that are generated by a Quick Trip compared to a lot of the other C2 uses that could be developed on the site. And we recently worked on a case in Chandler, and part of that due diligence we did was we asked the city for counts before and after a Quick Trip was developed. These are numbers straight from city transportation. There was only a 1.09% increase in traffic on the adjacent roadways after the Quick Trip was developed. With respect to proximity to residential, we were asked to look at that. These are 2 QT stores that operate near 55-plus communities. The one on Grand Avenue on your left is approximately 300 feet from a 55-plus community. The QT on your right-hand side is on Bell Road, and that's approximately 900 feet from a residential community. And if you look at some of the other QTs that also operate around residential facilities, you'll see that we're 100 feet from some, 200 feet from others, 300 feet from some, a lot closer than what we're proposing today.
That's been 10 minutes.
May I have a little more time, Ms. Chairperson?
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. With respect to noise, between the site and the nearest home, there's 3 walls. You heard the presentation from Guadalupe. We are anticipating lower than 45 decibels at this location during operating hours. That's less than any regulation in any city that our acoustical consultants aware of throughout the country. And he also believes that noise sources from the proposed Quick Trip would be similar to most commercial uses that operate on the site. We've done lighting studies, and we're going to comply with all the city's lighting regulations. If you have any questions on safety, we have some more slides regarding safety and crime and other policies and procedures that QT implements. Very good. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Does anybody on the commission have questions? Ernie, did you have more questions?
Not for now.
Not for the applicant. Anybody else? No? Thank you very much.
And can I ask really quick, is there any questions from Chairman Clymer or Commissioner Hegedus?
None for me, thank you.
Is there an increase in crime around QTs?
He's asking if you've seen an increase in crime around QTs.
So if you review the map, that's the community crime map that's available on the City of Goodyear website that uses a LexisNexis database, the sites are identified here. The one on the south of I-10 is on Estrella Parkway. The one north of I-10 is the Bullard and McDowell location. There's no indication of any enhanced crime in those areas based on this database.
Thank you. Anything else, Chairman Hegedus?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, Vice Chairperson, can I have a little more time for rebuttal to answer questions that may come up from speakers?
If we feel the need as the commission when the time comes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any speaker cards?
Indeed. For Patrick Murphy? And just while you're coming up, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The screens will let you know how much time you have left to speak. And before you begin to speak, please identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and if you're a Goodyear resident.
My name is Patrick C. Murphy. I reside in Pebble Creek, address 6221 Pebble Creek. I read Mr. Spector's June 19th letter to the commission, and he covers a lot of the major points and concerns. Before I get into what my concerns beyond that, the timing of this is awful suspect. Seems like it always comes up in the summer. More than 50% of our residents, a number of whom I know oppose it, are on vacation or they're snowbirds. And it would seem to me that something of this magnitude and impact on our community, you ought to be able to get the voices of the people that are impacted. And this is not happening. This is the second time it's happened. It comes up in June of last year. And it just seems strange. And I would request that if they're going to have things of this nature that affect directly impact the community, that they be scheduled at a time when the community would have a chance to speak to it. Mr. Spector's letter covers a lot of important things. I guess one of the question I have is that the traffic signal. Traffic is getting worse and worse on Indian School, and I heard these statistics, but it's really getting bad, and with the signal and trucks coming in and out, cars coming in and out, it's going to be a nightmare. And it's only 2 blocks from the freeway, and there's going to be a backup there. And if that's just going to create a miserable situation as far as traffic. It's going to impact people's ability to get in and out of Pebble Creek, out of the community, and access the freeway. The question is access to the freeway. It's a welcome to crime. There's no the quick way. They can get off the freeway, rob the place, and be on the road again within 5 minutes and be miles away because of the freeway access. None of the other locations we're talking about here of QT are right close to the freeway where they can a block or two later be on the freeway and be off. And crime rates are higher with these type of convenience stores. And with only 2 people, as I understand it, on duty after midnight, this is just going to be wide open to possible crime. And we think that's something that should be considered by the committee. The hours of operation, 24/7, that's a problem for the community. And also, it's going to become a potential UPS hangout for before and after shift. The drivers will come in there and get coffee and hang around and stay in the parking lot. It's going to create a traffic problem of coming in and out, just accessing the store for coffee and donuts or whatever they're going to have before and after shift, or a chance to shoot the bull after shift and maybe have a beer at the parking lot. It's going to create a miserable problem that way. And I guess that the only other question I have was just that the traffic is going to be worsened. I know you have the studies on Pebble Creek Parkway, and you have the traffic on the highway directly accessing it, but they're going to get worse and worse, and there's certain times of the day that's going to become terrible. People won't be able to move because there'll be so much, the signal there off the freeway, and another signal 2 blocks away. It's going to become a real traffic jam and a hazard to the community. And for that, I thank you for a chance to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Karen Murphy, would you like to speak? Since you're on the card. No? Karen Murphy, did you want to speak since you were on the card as well? Okay, thank you. Got it. John Angus, all right.
Good evening. My name's John Angus, and I'm a resident of Goodyear and Pebble Creek. First, I hope you've all had the opportunity to read Jeff Spector's letter to you, strongly suggesting that you should not consider approving this QT operation. With that said, Mark Twain said, the problem with common sense is that it is not common. Here's a great example. Does it make common sense to build a 24-hour QT, which is a high-volume business, 1,362 more vehicles, noisy, with bright lights, with increased potential for criminal activity, right next to a retirement community? Also, this location is a stone's throw away from 16 pickleball courts and a golf course that's used by senior citizens. So the answer is clearly no. It makes no common sense for any 24-hour business be located right next to a retirement community. It is total nonsense. Ask yourself what will happen if you approve the QT proposal. So 24-hour operations beget more 24-hour operations. Within the next 2 years, that commercial zone will be lit up like a Christmas tree at midnight. That makes no sense. Not to mention the additional noise, traffic, and potential for criminal activity. Here's what does make sense. I look north to us to the intersection of 303 and Waddell. The city of Surprise has built a business community of shops, stores, and restaurants that add value to Surprise. And guess what? None of them are 24-hour. Why can't we do that? What Goodyear has recently built that you have approved near Pebble Creek are warehouses, a White Castle, very classy, and under construction is another McDonald's. Now you want to throw in a 24-hour QT on top of that, and a year ago you wanted to do a Circle K. Honestly, I'm beginning to think you don't like residents of Pebble Creek. Ladies and gentlemen, can't we do better than that? Goodyear is the second fastest growing city in Arizona. Do we want to be known for fast food and gas stations? Everyone here wants to make Goodyear a community that we're all proud of. Let's pull back, use some common sense, and say no to QT 24-hour operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angus.
Vic Knight.
Hi, good evening. Vic Knight, I live in Pebble Creek. So I wasn't going to speak because I'm getting over something and I'm trying to not cough, but I had to stand up and say a couple words. It was a little bit entertaining to hear the lawyer for QT say, well, all commercial businesses have deliveries, so they're going to make noise. Well, how many businesses actually have 24/7 deliveries? I've asked Mr. Chandler from QT. He says, yeah, they're going to be deliveries all time, the day and night. So we're talking about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning deliveries. You're living in a retirement community, and you know, as you get older, some who are not old won't realize sometimes sleeping is hard. You wake up, and those kind of things can wake you up. So I find that entertaining to hear that. Also, I hear that the discussion about the wall. The wall does not work. We asked QT, help us. And he said, Mr. Chandler said, we're a neighborhood-friendly operation. So they give us suggestions. We gave them suggestions, and everything was no. I don't care what's a wall, shorter hours, whatever. It was no, no, no. So as far as them being neighborly, doesn't work. We have a 6-foot wall there that I guarantee you, if your life depended on it, you could climb it. Anybody can climb it. And so you're going to be forcing us as a community to spend thousands of dollars probably down the road to build a higher wall there because we're worried who's going to be climbing that wall. I'd like to remind the city, our community was there first. If we were, if QT was there or Circle K was there, we have no complaints. When we moved there, we know what's there. But now we've been there, and they're coming into our community, and we need your help to say no. Lastly, unfortunately, we live in a country with open borders. And if anybody here thinks for a second that none of those people will be coming through our neighborhood, the QT or other places like that, they got something else coming. There's violence, there's crime. You're all asking us to live near that 240 feet away. They can easily climb our walls. So I just ask you to consider that we don't need the problems. We ask for your help and say no.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Joan Knight.
Thank you. My name is Joan Knight. I'm a Goodyear resident. This permit should be denied because it is materially detrimental to persons residing in Pebble Creek, a senior community. The 24/7 operation is not compatible with the area. Pebble Creek rolls up the sidewalk at 9 p.m. We know that the triangle is zoned commercial. It abuts residential. And all C2 businesses we know are not open 24/7. QT will produce noise that is detrimental to the health of the nearby senior residents. The property is only 240 feet from the sports complex. Importantly, Pebble Creek limited the hours so the residents are not disturbed. The sports complex is only open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. No noise, no lights, no people at night. QT has offered zero solution on sound, crime, food odors, or even restricting their hours. So my suggestion is, the solution is, do not recommend the permit, but deny it. Or at least restrict the operating hours, including delivery hours. There are other gas stations in Phoenix that are not open 24/7. Last year, Circle K even admitted during the hearings that some of their Arizona stores are closed during certain hours of the night. Luke has chosen not to fly the jets at night, and they don't fly before 7 a.m. in the morning. QT already has 2 operations within a few miles of Pebble Creek that are open 24/7. QT did conduct the sound studies and rejected the idea of building a sound wall. Sound will carry at night from the cars, motorcycles, horns, voices, and semi-truck deliveries. That's 24/7. This noise will be detrimental to the health of the seniors whose bedroom is only 700 feet away. And a noise disturbance for sleep can contribute to high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease, and the elderly are especially affected by this noise. At the very least, you should be consistent with stipulations the city has already placed on other businesses in the area. Goodyear restricted the hours of several McDonald's, one at Indian School in Saraville. They have to be closed from midnight to 5 a.m. Goodyear should be consistent on these issues. Either deny the permit or close the QT from midnight to 5 a.m. A 24/7 hour operation is an invitation to crime. QT does have security cameras, but these are only helpful after the fact. QT also says they are a safe place for at-risk youth, but they do have other QTs that can provide the needed services, as well as there are public facilities.
That's been 3 minutes.
So may I finish my last sentence? Thank you. Then I urge you to not recommend the permit, or at least add additional stipulations consistent with the past city actions on other businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight.
Victor Leo.
I have a procedural question first to ask. I have notes that I would like to leave with the council, and I plan on having these notes as a public record, as well as sending them to the Goodyear City Council. I will not digress from these notes, but I need approximately 4 minutes to go through them. Can I have your permission to do that?
You have 3 minutes, but I need input from the city attorney. Is that acceptable for him to provide us copies of his notes?
Yes, you can provide a
Okay.
My name is Victor Leo. I'm a citizen of Goodyear. I'm a veteran and a senior. Goodyear's zoning ordinances should contain safeguards to protect the public welfare and the quality of life. The proposed QT request for a use permit prohibiting a gas station should be denied or postponed based on excessive environmental impact. I will focus on 3 factors: additional air pollution, insufficient zoning safeguards, and excessive traffic congestion. Pollution. High traffic volume is known to be associated with refueling and convenience store locations. The addition of 8 fueling pumps, gasoline and diesel, can serve up to 16 vehicles at a time, and it will produce an unhealthy pollution mix, which is detrimental to the public. Gas fueling processes require pumping the material into the vehicle, and some fumes escape, as well as some possible liquid falls to the concrete surface. Underground fueling storage tanks require venting. Toxic chemical compounds can be released. High customer demand requires fuel deliveries to gas stations, and with it, the potential release for toxic fumes. Specific air pollution chemicals, known as benzene, a known cancer concern, toluene, ethylbenzene, xylene, and others referred to as BTX, BTEX. Even breathing small amounts of these gasoline vapors can produce breathing difficulties, noise, throat irritation, headaches, etc. These breathing difficulties, along with higher ozone levels, can lead to more serious respiratory problems like asthma and COPD. Pollution is already a significant problem at the proposed location. The jet fuel exhaust associated with Luke Air Force operations, vehicle exhaust from 303 as constantly expanding traffic on 303, as well as from Indian School Road. Constant air pollution alerts are the norm for Mariposa County by local, state, and national agencies. Pebble Creek includes over 1,000 pickleball members, and they are classified as senior citizens. In addition to the age factor, on their general health, seniors may be further compromised by asthmatic, COPD, and other breathing difficulties. The conclusion of this is that no single factor is the cause of the Triangle's air pollution problem, but the proposed QT gas station will contribute to the overall toxic mix. And it's this new toxic mix that is detrimental to the public welfare. Insufficient zoning safeguards. Safeguards are not identified in the proposed gas station submission. QT proposal is not compatible to the adjacent pickleball recreation facility known as the North Courts. The contention that QT property is approximately 240 feet from the pickleball court is questionable and requires further classification. Nevertheless, it's generally understood that gas stations should be at least 500 to 1,000 feet from public-private schools, recreational and entertainment venues, and the measurements are generally described in lot to lot.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Yes?
Your 3 minutes are up, sir. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
If you wanted to leave your copies with the secretary.
Jackie Brandt.
My name is Jackie Brandt, and I live in the villas of Unit 43B at Pebble Creek, which is what you see on the little things with the triangle and all the houses, the closest area to where this is proposed. I'm not anti-development. I am pro-planned development and growth. We're outside all the time doing activities, and there's not a lot that I can say that everyone before me hasn't said. But last year, we had a petition with over 1,000 signatures from Pebble Creek residents opposing Circle K because we care about what type of development is going to be built in there. I also sent correspondence to the Goodyear City Council suggesting that they consider changing the zoning of that entire parcel to a commercial business versus a commercial light industrial for this exact reason. It's much more compatible with our senior living community. Many residents will have their health harmed if this is permitted. There are many businesses that would be acceptable uses, but they don't include convenience stores and drive-throughs with idling cars 24/7. If this is allowed, it's going to harm our quality of life, our health, our security, and the quiet enjoyment of the homes in this community that we love. After tonight, I also have some things that I would like to point out. I looked up the Luke Air Force Base 65 DNL zone, which is also known as the accident potential zone. I don't think that it is a very good idea to put a gas station with underground gas tanks and above-ground pumping stations in an accident potential zone. I also went to Planning and Zoning this morning, and I asked about the parcel. I don't even know how many parcels are approved on here. I have one parcel map that shows there are 6 parcels. I have one that shows that there are 4, and I would like to know what that is. The other thing is, they talked about Filiberto's use permit at Planning and Zoning this morning. I was told that that had expired, that they had not filed for an extension, that they have not filed for a building permit, and they have not broken ground. So I think it's a perfect time to change the zoning on that parcel and bring us a Trader Joe's or a bank or something that is more in line with a 55-plus senior community with many, many people who have health issues. We love Pebble Creek. I thank you for listening to my concerns, and I ask you to deny this use permit.
Thank you, Ms. Brandt.
Is it Deanne Sieber? I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Oh, okay. Then, last name Hutchison? Hutchins? Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try. But yes, when you get up there, please, your name and if you're a Goodyear resident.
Trody Hutchins, Pebble Creek. I really don't have a lot to say anymore because everybody has put forth everything that I was going to say. But I will say that I give the Planning Commission for planning for them, and I give them credit for making a great plan. But what everybody has said before, you denied, the Circle K was denied, and it was a gas station. And now we're coming right back. The only thing we didn't do was put some diesel pumps in, but it's still a gas station. Same conditions, same concerns. Not a single different concern was made in with the Circle K that we haven't made with Quick Trip. It's still a senior community. It's still a community that doesn't need a gas station there. You've heard everything about environment. You heard about traffic. It's an anchor baby for other businesses. And any business that come in there, if they're going to be 24 hours, every other business wants to be 24 hours. So I think in reality, as a commission and as a planning and what's good for Goodyear, you really should just deny it because that's what's compatible with what we've already said. You've done it once before. You didn't do the Circle K. Why would you now allow a Quick Trip? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchins.
And I've received 6 speaker cards in opposition that do not wish to speak.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? I'm closing the public hearing. Oh, my apologies. Come ahead. Come ahead, sir. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. My name is Don Bolanix. I live in Goodyear and Pebble Creek. I've been to both meetings, and the one question that hasn't been answered yet, and they didn't even get close to it, is what's their profit range from midnight to 5 a.m.? Why do they really have to be open? We never got an answer to that. I mean, good business people, you know, if there's no customers, there's no revenue, nothing going on between 12 and 5, what are you doing open? It doesn't make good business sense. And it certainly doesn't make sense to us in Pebble Creek. That's just the only thing I wanted to bring up that I haven't heard an answer to. I did attend the other 2 meetings. I'd like to hear an answer to that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bolonix. Anyone else? All right. Public hearing is closed. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend conditional approval of the use permit request for a convenience use Quick Trip convenience store with a gas station on parcel 4 on the final plat of PV 303 East 2, Phase 1, recorded on February 16, 2018, in the official records of Maricopa County at Book 1370 of Maps, page 10, the property, subject to stipulations. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation, or you can also voice an alternate motion?
Are we going to have a discussion prior?
As soon as
After
we get
the
the motion, yeah.
I have a motion from Commissioner Wang, a second from Commissioner Booth. The floor is open for commission discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to say something, Vice Chairman.
So
Oh, we have someone on the line?
Yes, Chairman Clymer. Can you hear me?
Barely, we can barely hear you, Chairman Greg.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I want to thank the staff for their report. I'd like to thank the applicant for their presentation this evening and the public for their participation. Some things, we got some communication sent to us that seemed to insinuate that our planning department was incorrect in their findings, which I don't believe are true. There was a gentleman here just a few moments ago that said that the Circle K had been denied. That was not correct. It was not denied. Actually, it was passed, and that the Circle K just withdrew their application. If you have the private property in Goodyear, and it meets a lot of everything that the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and stipulation have, everything can't be a clothing store. Mayor Pizzillo has said such in a In Focus article. So when you have this property that has, I believe, met all of those criteria, it's tough to turn down something. That's just where my thoughts are. And I said the same thing with the Circle K the last time. So I'll turn it back to you, Vice Chairman Zambito.
Thank you, Chairman Clymer. Ernie, did you want to add?
My only question is, I look at the proposed stipulation on this project, and there's only like 7 stipulations on this. 6 months ago, the commission and the city council approved a permit for convenience use with a gas station about 2.5 miles from here on the corner of Indian School Road and Fairview. And in fact, that location, that gas station is less than 500 feet from the adjacent residential community. However, I look at that, there's like 18 stipulations. That's the basis for that approval. Here, there's 7, and one of the stipulations for that is that there's no alcohol, liquor, tobacco, or marijuana that will be sold on that premise. And I'm not clear if this Q-tip will, those items will be sold in this proposed Q-tip location. Okay. The other thing is, on the ordinance for that permit for convenience use on that location, I look at the basis for the approval, and yet there's nothing in there that talks about hours of operation. So I just assume, because in my mind, not all gas stations operate 24/7. Okay? I mean, Costco gas station, they close at 11 o'clock, for instance. So I just assume that the hours of operation for that particular location being a lot more closer to residential community will not be 24/7. I also asked tonight if there's any similar business in this adjacent community here for this proposed site that operates 24/7. And I heard Filiberto's is still active, and yet one of the speakers said it's not active. So when you look at just give me a second here. If you look at the criteria for approving this proposal, it says the proposed hours of operation is, in conformity with the adjacent vicinity, and yet apparently there's no other business that operate 24/7. So that is a question that I haven't found any answer yet. And then the other thing, as I said, is if this is approved, there has to be a stipulation like the other one, where no alcohol, liquor, tobacco, or marijuana should be sold in this location. The other thing is, one of the stipulation is, pertains to Quick Trip 1503. I just assume that those are all within or in compliance with existing ordinance, okay? So I may have another one, but I reserve it for
Okay.
later.
I would be curious, staff may have to answer the question. I agree with you as far as the alcohol, but it could be that this applicant is actually seeking an alcohol sales permit, which may be apart from that. So maybe the other applicant was not doing that. Staff may have to clarify that. But I am curious about the potential for the marijuana and why it was specified on the other one and not on this one.
Thank you, Vice Chairwoman. The quick convenience use that you're referring to is the Sedea commercial. And as you'll recall, that convenience use also had a drive-through on the gas station. So the restrictions on the alcohol, marijuana, and the length of the stipulations was particularly about the fact that this was the first time we were seeing a convenience store that also had gas and also had a drive-through component. So that store was not restricted in hours of operation. That store could operate 24 hours, and the restrictions on alcohol and marijuana was about that type of product passing through a drive-through window. So that was part of the reason for the length of the stipulations in that case, as well as components that were already written into the Sedea planned area development document. Some of those were carried over into the stipulations of that case.
Are the alcohol and marijuana sales a separate permit that they seek through the city or a separate agency?
For a gas station, they would get a alcohol permit through the state and through that process. This was just a very specific case where you had a drive-through attached to
combination.
the gas station itself. So that's why there were so many stipulations to addressing that type of product.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Well, as far as just making comments, my impression, this application versus the previous application, they are quite a bit further away. The truck component of the previous application extended all the way down to the property line wall. This increases the buffer significantly, and once the development moves in around there, as was pointed out earlier, it will further buffer it. So, to me, that's an improvement over the previous application.
I agree.
That's the comment I had. Were there any other comments from staff or from commission?
For me, it's the same thing. It's just.
Turn it on.
Turn on?
There.
There I go, okay. So in regards to the Quick Trip and the business plan of 24/7 for that area, just you said earlier, I'm wondering, are there any other Quick Trip gas stations in the valley that are not 24/7?
Good evening. My name is Daniel Chambers. I work for Quick Trip Corporation, and I office out of 1116 East Broadway Road in Tempe. We do not have any other. All of our stores are 24/7 in the Phoenix area as well as the nation for consistency of product offer.
Okay.
Have you ever, to address Ernie's question, do you have any numbers for how many clients you do get between the hours of, say, 12 and 5? I mean, have you ever, you had gone and checked into something as far as the crime and as far as the increase in traffic once a site was in? Have you ever considered looking at that? Like, what benefit is it to you? Do you have a third of your customers in those really dark hours?
You know, it's a great question. The volume of traffic definitely does decrease during that time, but one of the key components to Quick Trip, one of the core values, is just the consistency of product offer. No matter what time someone works, not everyone has traditional work schedules. Some people have to work very odd schedules. We want to have an environment and a safe place that people can come in no matter what time of day it is, and they can feel safe, they can get fuel, they can get their snacks, they can use the restroom, whatever it is to be, so that they can come in and feel safe no matter what time of day that is. But one of the things that we got when I got hired is when we got hired, we got a Snickers bar. And they didn't tell us what the Snickers bar was for until the third day of new store orientation. And so they kept it, and some people ate it, some people didn't. But when they finally told us what the Snickers bar represented, it was our founder, Chester. He wanted, when you went into a store in Atlanta and you wanted to buy a Snickers bar, he darn sure well wanted, when you would come to a store in Phoenix, to be able to get the Snicker bar in that exact same place. And so that's that consistency of product offer that we want to offer all people, no matter what time of day they work.
I know you stressed, sorry, Marlon. I know you stressed security, and I know there was some concerns in the report reflected. Does that mean that you do have a security guard around the clock, especially those darker hours?
I don't think if there is, some stores do, we do have some security guards, but if you looked at the crime and the LexisNexis and the data, and we did do some freedom of information request for some of the police data as well. This area is an incredibly safe area. It'll continue to be that way even after the Quick Trip comes in. So we will not have a dedicated security guard at this store because there's no crime in this area to speak of. We did pull the data to look at the other two stores, and we can talk about some more specifics of it too. But Goodyear is you guys run a very, very well city, good city.
Yeah, it's a very safe. But like my question is, with that area, where it's located, I understand the worry and concern regarding public safety. So there's just no way that you can meet them halfway in terms of having a security guard or someone there on the grounds?
So we will have multiple people there at night to help with that. We have the cameras and the monitor, and every employee carries a personal protection device. It's pretty cool. It looks like a little button. If you go into Quick Trips, you'll see them have it, and it's got a panic button on it. So if ever at any point an employee feels unsafe or there's ever a situation that does arise, when they push that button, what that does is that alerts, and it alerts the network. And at corporate, they have an entire wall. It's a room much bigger than this, actually. And if any employee ever pushes that button, it activates all the cameras on site at that store, and then allows the team there that's there 24/7 also to start interfacing with local law enforcement. And some of the records we found, you guys have a less than a 5-minute police response time in Goodyear, which is an incredible good response time. So,
I understand. And one last question. Why was that area chosen specifically? Is it just because you guys feel like it's a prime spot for revenue, or it's proximity to the 303?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Several factors went into choosing that location. So I'm just trying to build the network and be able to provide, once again, consistency of coverage to all the residents of Goodyear. That is a gap there. There is nothing there. It does provide some access off the freeway, which does help to allow people to get their convenience and then be able to get on the freeway to work or on their way home, get off. But it is just a gap. And if you go up the 303, there's also some lack of services of this type of use along the 303 corridor too. But
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
May I?
Oh.
One of the reasons why I asked about a traffic study is you don't have a traffic study that was done during the night. You gave me a figure that's for 24 hours, okay? So my question is, if you have a traffic study for nighttime only, that will be very helpful to us, because I appreciate your statement that this QT will not result in any other unsafety operation or something like that. But if you have that, my question will be, having that number, what would that number be if you have this operation on this side? Do you know what I'm saying? In other words,
I think if I'm understanding, you're asking me if we took that, we found an aggregate number of 24 hours of the amount of cars that we anticipate, and you want to know specifically what time of day that those cars would be there.
yeah, how many vehicles traverse to that Indian School Road in that particular location during nighttime? Okay, so let's say it's 150 or something like that. So having known that number, and if this project is approved, what would that number be? Because you will attract additional traffic.
I think they're going to attract additional traffic, but
Regardless,
the intent of a traffic study is to determine the capacity of the street and whether you're exceeding it or not, or altering the capacity of the street by the addition of the project. So when you're talking traffic study, that's not what they're looking for. That's kind of why I was going towards the direction of, they had done other studies at other stores as far as how did the traffic impact once the store was in. But that's something after the store's in, and it still wouldn't be necessarily a traffic study. It would be how many people came to the business. The purpose of a traffic study is a little different from what we're
Okay.
looking for. You're going to help address that?
I sure can. I was the traffic engineer for the project, so Jamie Blakeman with Lokahi. To answer, the traffic study follows the guidelines that the city has, and it follows national standards. So what we look in a traffic study is for the worst times of day. That's the reason why it's focused on the morning peak hour, weekday peak hour, because there's background traffic volumes, and we want to know what happens when you compound this development on that. And then it also looks at the afternoon. So if we looked outside of those hours, right, like for example, we looked at midnight, the background volumes are so low. And then also, he's also explained that's not peak QT times as well. Our traffic study would only show that it would operate at level service A's everywhere. There would be no delays, there'd be no traffic. So what we're really trying to do is focus our traffic study on the worst times.
You're not aware of any other type of study that would address what the question is, though? It doesn't feel to me like the traffic study is what my fellow commissioner is actually looking for. I understand the concept of traffic study relative to the volume of the street and the capacity of the street.
Yep.
He's curious to know what happens at nighttime, and my personal thought is traffic study is not going to address that.
So within the national standards, there are criteria, like there are percentages throughout a day. Like, so let's just say there's 1,000 trips in a day. There would be percentages that add up to 100 for every single hour, and it shows like the trajectory of volumes throughout the day and how it disperses through the day. So there is that. But that's not a typical thing that we include in a traffic study, just because the percentages will be so low. It would be like 1%, 2% during those hours. But there is that available. But I think you're looking for...
So it would be a special request?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
I
Okay.
just have one last question.
Okay.
Again, I asked this question before. Will there be tobacco, alcohol, and what the other one? Be sold in this store?
The
In this,
marijuana?
Marijuana was the other one.
Marijuana?
We will not sell any marijuana. That's something that we don't do. We don't sell any pornography. We don't sell any marijuana in any of our stores at all, period.
But you will sell alcohol and liquor and all that stuff?
We will, if we were able to obtain a state beer wine license, we would sell that in the store if we could obtain that, yes, and the proper tobacco licensing as well.
Do you have any other store that doesn't sell alcohol, tobacco, and liquor?
No, all of our stores sell beer,
all
wine,
sell
and
that?
tobacco.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, we're going to bring it in for a vote.
Yes. Please enter your vote. And Chairman Clymer, may I please have your vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Hegedus, please have your vote.
Aye.
Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the July 8th meeting.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 3. It's the zoning ordinance text amendment for storage. We'll open the public hearing. Christian Williams will present.
Good evening, Vice Chairwoman. Christian Williams, Planning Manager here with the City of Goodyear. And today we will have a discussion on the special use and use permit criteria and additional considerations regarding mini storage. Many of you will recall us having this conversation previously, and since that time, there have been changes to the ordinance that you saw that did concern this item. So again, today's presentation will cover the topic of self-service storage facilities, aka mini storage. And again, when you all saw an item in an ordinance back in April that contained the item for mini storage, convenience stores, and gas stations, and recommended approval of that item was not heard by the City Council. So the ordinance before you today is nearly similar to that ordinance, with the exception that it deals exclusively with storage. It does not deal with convenience stores or gas stations. If that item were to be considered in the future, it would need to come back before this body and the City Council, as well as go through the public noticing process. And as a reminder, for mini storage, the item may be considered within C1, C2, I1, and I2 with a special use permit. The zoning ordinance text amendment recommends the removal of the special use permit process in most cases. The following would apply in all cases: no hazardous material storage, no buildings in excess of 3 stories, the storage unit may not occupy more than 500 feet of arterial frontage, windows other than offices must be faux windows or not visible with views into the storage facility. Storage yards and garage doors shall be screened, and auctions are prohibited. Storage buildings and canopies shall be at least 30 feet away from residential homes or districts when they are not platted, and a minimum of a 20-foot green belt shall be provided. All self-storage, if located within 500 feet of residential, shall be limited in hours of operation from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And in C1 and C2, on a maximum of 7.5 acres or 50% maximum, whichever is the least in the commercial district, not located within 300 feet of an arterial to arterial intersection. If they did request that, that would require a special use permit. Not located within 2,600 feet of another storage unit. If that is a request for that clustering, it would require a special use permit. And nor outdoor RV storage would be permitted, only indoor within the commercial districts. Within the industrial districts, outdoor RV storage would be permitted if screened from off-site view, and there would be no size restrictions within industrial districts. This would again encourage storage units to locate within industrial districts. There would also be similar design requirements and hours of operation limitations when within 500 feet of residential. I did that overview quick, as many of you have heard this presentation at least 3 times before. But with that overview, the proposed text amendment, staff recommends you forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to amend Articles 2, 3, and 4 of the zoning ordinance related to convenience use mini storage. I'm happy to answer any questions about the ZOTA if you have any.
Any questions for staff?
No, thank you.
I did have a couple, Christian.
Okay.
One of the regulations indicates storage of hazardous or dangerous materials is prohibited. And I know we had an applicant in the last year that was one of, up in Australia there, that was one of their big concerns. How would that be enforced? That was one of the concerns that came out.
This is where we'd work with our friends in Code and Fire. Fire does do inspections of buildings. Code does receive complaints or observations from the community. So if those observations or items were noticed, we would begin an investigation.
Good. And then as I was reading it, one of the points that was made, auction, sales, service, or repair activities are prohibited except for the disposal of abandoned property from renters on site. It seems a little confusing to me. It almost implies that if such an instance occurs, then we would have an auction or a sale.
If a resident were to abandon their facility, meaning they didn't pay their rent or that those items needed to be disposed of from the facility, there would need to be a process allowance for that. But if somebody is utilizing a storage unit on a continuous basis to provide auctions and sales of items, that
Okay.
would be prohibited.
So a renter couldn't use it to do an auction, but if they needed to auction it, then they could.
Correct. If somebody abandoned all their items, did not pay, and you couldn't find them, the storage operator would need a means to dispose of those
Do
items.
do they need to come get a permit from you to do that?
For just
An
general
auction
disposal?
on site?
No, I don't. I believe our interpretation would be that they would not, because that's not a general auction. They're not performing an auction, really. They're trying to dispose of abandoned.
So it's not really how it is on TV?
No.
Okay. All right.
That would require a special use permit.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm only going by what I've seen. Perfect, that answers my questions. Thank you, Christian.
You're welcome.
Christian, so you indicated hours of operation in this new amendment? Okay. This is the first time that hours of operation has been indicated, because I read this entire zoning ordinance, 258 pages. I couldn't see any description about hours of operation. So I'm glad that
They've been added.
it's been added.
And this is a common provision that you have seen in other storage units that have been approved in the city that are near or adjacent to residential.
So we're now incorporating it into here, so we don't have to have that discussion every time.
Correct, because there's been a large precedence that has effectively been set.
That's
So this
good.
is looking to codify and make it very
Yeah.
certain and clear for the residents and the community that wants to develop these.
Great. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hegedus, Chairman Clymer?
None for me. Thank you.
Are there-
None for me either.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
Not received any for this item?
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Very good. Close the public hearing. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval for a request to consider a zoning ordinance text amendment to Articles 2-2 definitions, 3-3 commercial districts, 3-4 industrial districts, 4 regulations of particular uses, and 4-2 uses requiring additional evaluation of the City of Goodyear zoning ordinance related to self-service storage facilities being in a permitted use in certain zoning districts subject to newly adopted regulations without the need for use permits or special use permits as reflected in the proposed ordinance 2024-1606. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation, or you can voice an alternate motion? Perfect. I have a motion from Commissioner Nepomuceno, a second from Commissioner Smith. The floor is open for commission discussion.
Is there any discussion? Okay.
I just think this certainly streamlines things, and there'll be more things coming down the pipe. But some of these projects like this, then we don't need to see them any further, which is good.
All right. Please enter your vote. Chairman Clymer, may I get your vote?
A yay?
Commissioner Hegedus?
Also a yay.
Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the July 8th meeting.
Are there any staff communications?
Thank you. Just to give you an update of the items you reviewed at the last meeting. First, I do want to note that at the last meeting, we said that the LC Dro PAD for the Willow project would go June 26th, July 8th. As you can see, it wasn't on tonight. It will be completely renoticed in the future when it comes before you. And then you did consider the West Valley Christian School special use permit and recommended approval. That was heard by council on Monday night. They approved it, adding 4 additional stipulations. If you remember, they added a stipulation regarding the easement, some of the automatic gates, a wall, and private drive signs. So those were added to it. And that concludes my communications.
Thank you. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on August 14, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Goodyear City Council Chambers. There being no further business to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.